Well, you just saw how positively the markets reacted to that inflation rate earlier today. Ed took us through it and the different inflation numbers that were released by the ABS today. But let's drill down into those different measurements of inflation and where the priorities really should lie. Michelle Marquardt is the head of price statistics at the Australian Bureau of Statistics and joins me now from our Canberra studio. Michelle, always good to chat to you about this. You put out, or can I say, 4 key measurements of inflation. The normal headline rate, which is the one that's going down. There's the trim mean, which is the normal one we would see. There's seasonally adjusted. That's a pretty typical one. But there's another one in there, and that is the CPI excluding volatile items, which includes holiday travel and obviously fuel prices as well, and vegetables. Why the different ones? We recognise probably the first 3, but why this extra one?
Thanks for having me, Ross. So the extra one we've got in there is actually pretty commonly used around the world. It is really helpful for looking through what we call volatile items. So things like fruit and veg and fuel and travel can all be affected by things like seasonal factors. So for instance, if there's floods, they can make food prices go sky high. We've seen things like the invasion in Ukraine impact fuel. And we've seen, and travel, particularly in the monthly, goes up and down every month because it's always either coming into school holidays or leaving school holidays or about to be school holidays. So it's just a way of looking at inflation without those sort of impacts on it to see what's actually going on underlying the CPI headline.
OK, so a lot of the headlines this afternoon are saying this big fall in the inflation rate, and then you've got the markets that have responded very positively. But when we go to that measurement, that new measurement you've put in there, it shows that the inflation rate really only fell from 6.5% to 6.4%. So how do we read that? How do we interpret that in terms of, is that a more accurate reflection of where inflation is in Australia right now?
Yeah, so each of the measures has got some pros and cons to them. So obviously the headline one includes everything, but it can get a bit distorted and bounce around a bit like we've seen in the last couple of months. So it's gone from 6.3 up to 6.8 and then down again to 5.6. So having these sort of other underlying measures helps us kind of look through that and not be distracted by the bouncing around. So the one excluding the travel and fruit and veg has actually, it's come down a little bit from 2 months ago, but then as you said, it's stayed pretty flat between last month and this month. The trimmed mean measure, which is the one where we basically take off the top 15% of movers and the bottom 15% and then average the rest. It's come down a little bit. It's come down from 6.7 down to 6.1. So, yeah, I mean, I think what that's really saying to us is that there's a lot going on with prices at the moment, and the purpose of these 3 measures is to try and help people interpret what's actually going on.
But one observation that you do make, which is quite clear, and that is that the price of fuel has fallen enormously. Now, we sit here and think $120 a barrel for oil 12 months ago. Now it's under $70. You think about travel costs. You then think about fruit and vegetable costs were really sky high last year with floods. So these things do change, don't they, and affect the inflation rate?
Absolutely. So what we're seeing with fuel is actually related to what happened 12 months ago. So if you recall, 12 months ago was the invasion into Ukraine. So that caused the prices to go way up. We also had the reduction in the fuel tax the month before. So we're seeing fuel bounce around quite a lot. It's gone way up and then it's come way down. So a lot of that, though, is related to what was going on 12 months ago.
Yes.
Yeah, fruit and veg is actually quite high and has been really staying quite high. So it's been up around 8 for the last couple of months, 8%. Yes. So that's quite solid inflation.
Michelle, I'll have to leave it there if that's okay. Many thanks for your time and your interpretation today, as always.